Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Brennan McLaughlin.
Hi, Brennan. I'm Mike Brode.
I'm Tim Havler.
And I'm Michelle Hunter.
All right, Tim, what's the scenario?
The insured owns a house in Louisville, Kentucky, near Churchill Downs.
Nice.
Tell me what Churchill Downs is.
Racetrack.
Racetrack, horse racing track. Every year prior to the first Saturday in May, which is when they run the
Horse
Kentucky
track.
Derby.
Derby.
Oh,
He rents his house out for 2 weeks, during which time he goes and stays with his mother. Most years, he's able to charge upwards of $3,000 for those 2 weeks. Sure enough, he secured a renter in
Nice.
2025 for $3,000. However, a week before the Derby, his home was destroyed in a fire. Obviously, he had to cancel a rental contract. The adjuster is giving him the coverage aid limits to rebuild his house, but the
Nice.
insured is also making a claim for fair rental value
Ooh.
fee for the 2 weeks that he was all set to rent it out. Policy is the ISO HO 00030511. Question: is there coverage under fair rental value?
Oh, geez.
I've prepared yet another trivia question. for
Oh,
three of
awesome.
you lovely
All right.
contestants. Oh, this is going to have to be a closest to the number wins. We are
Okay.
playing non-Price is Right rules, so we can go
Mhm.
either above or below, which means we might have to do a little math, but that's okay. Question: the Kentucky Derby was first run in what year?
Oh, geez, oh, Pete. Wait, let me just pick up my phone for some random reason that has nothing to do with that question. I'm going to go with 1898, Tim. Why not?
1898.
I'm
Okay.
going old. Yeah.
All right, we
I'm
got
going to
one
say
answer.
1920.
Did you say 1920 or
1920.
1920? Okay.
I'm going to go 1842. I feel like it's,
1842.
they've had horses for a while.
Good point.
Yeah.
I like your reasoning there. Answer: 1875.
Ooh.
Oh.
So
Wow.
what do we do now?
Did Mike win again? That's 3 in a row for Mike.
I think so. Yeah.
If
Wow.
we're doing it by math now, if I was using my rule of I was over and Brennan was under, he would win. But I'll take the victory. Thank you very
There
much,
you go.
Tim. 3 for 3.
Okay.
Can't wait till next time.
I think next time I'm going to have to do a music question that only the younger generation would know. Brennan.
Something from the
Hey.
80s, per se,
On
would
the
be
old-
great. But
No.
anyway, go
We'll
on.
do a 90s or a 2000s.
Okay, yeah.
I could still listen to that music, Tim, even though I'm an old man.
But they weren't renting houses back then, just FYI.
Right.
This is a more newer scenario.
That's good.
Oh, in 1875, they certainly were
1871,
charging $3,000 for it.
yeah.
Okay, so let's. I got my green policy today because we're in the 2011 edition. Just read the first sentence of fair rental value coverage and see where that leads us.
All right.
Coverage B, fair rental value. If a loss covered under Section 1 makes that part of the residence premises rented to others or held for rental by you not fit to live in, we cover the fair rental value.
So we did have, I assume, fire certainly is covered under the one, whatever you said, that first word, first
Yep,
part,
that
part A,
fire
whatever.
here is our Section 1 loss, so we got that
Right.
triggering event, and then rented to others or held for rental by you.
I mean, it was rented, wasn't it?
Yeah, okay, so they had a contract in place to rent it in, what was it, May? I forget whenever it is. But
Right
at
before
the
the
exact time of the fire, it would, let's put it this way, no tenant was living there when the fire happened. But there was a contract in place for a future tenant. So I'll read this once more. Rented to others or held for rental by you.
Could you read a little before that? Does it have to be the whole premises or just a part of the premises, or that doesn't matter?
If a loss covered under Section 1 makes that part of the residence premises rented to others or held for rental by you, not fit to live in.
Okay. So that part could be the whole place or
Could be the
just
whole
a
place.
room.
If you're
Okay.
renting the whole place, yeah.
All right.
Well, I wonder, what about the scenario where you have, this person, hey, says, hey, I'm gonna rent this out. I've put advertisements out, but no, I don't have a tenant yet. Is that held for rental, or is held for rental when someone signs on to it and they've got a contract?
I think they're both held for rental.
Oh,
Okay.
So if you have a contract, definitely held for rental.
right.
Argue against that one. If you
Not me.
are advertising it publicly, and maybe we know in the past you've rented it out, then I would say held for rental. What you can't do is have a loss and then suddenly say, oh, actually, I'm going to rent it with no evidence whatsoever to support
Right.
that, just to try to get yourself in this FRV claim. That's where I would draw the line.
Or like, oh, we've always charged 3,000 in the past, but this time we were charging 10,000.
Right.
What then?
Okay, so good question. You get the fair market value.
Hmm.
Now, if you have a rental contract for $3,000, it's probably the fair market value, but not always. Maybe they were doing some other favors and then adjusted the price, or maybe there's family involved, so they got a great deal or a terrible deal or whatever's going on. If that's a $20,000 rental contract, I don't think that's fair market value.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking at around the Derby, yes, it costs more to rent a house for obvious reasons. So we kind of know based on other rental properties in the area, we know based on 2024, 2023, 2022, 3,000 seems about right. Then I think 3,000 would be the fair market value. And by the way, I just totally made that number up for this hypothetical, so I don't want anyone saying
That's
10
low.
in
Right.
Kentucky at this time, you should be getting $3,000 for 2 weeks. Made up.
But they could look back if they had rented it for that price before or something similar, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
just to see what is normal to come to a fair market value. They could look in the past and say, well, they rented it for 2,800 in the past, and now it's 3,000. That sounds fair, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you're going to use the past history as just further evidence of building your case of what you
Fair
think
market
it
value.
be.
Well, and I wonder how deep into sports that kind of thing gets, because I don't know much about horse racing, but if it was like a football game or something, there are football games that are not that exciting, and then there are like bowl games. So I'm
Ooh.
sure the amount of that other people are renting, at that same year, or comparable sports events in the past, there's probably an element of knowledge about the event that goes into this.
Good point.
That is Kentucky Derby. I mean, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
People dress
Versus.
up, they get ready.
Right.
It's a big
Wear
deal.
hats, mint
Hats.
juleps. Yes. All that
Yeah.
stuff. But let's say I was running it just to go visit the Louisville Slugger Bat Factory. Maybe then you're only charging me $1,000, right, Tim?
Well, if it's at that same time of the year, I bet it's still going to cost
Oh, could be
$3,000.
inflated. Good point.
But so then, it doesn't matter purpose of the tourist visit. It's just if you go there at that time, how much are you going to have to pay to rent that house?
What's the fair
You
market?
should go there a different time, Mike. If
Right.
you
I'll
really
go in
just
August.
care about the Derby.
Yeah, so in
Good
June,
point.
that would be a different number.
Right. But I'm still going to wear a funny hat and drink a mint julep, if that's okay.
Must.
Yes. Riddle me this one, Tim. How about this? I think you said this insured had both additional living expense claim and ALE claim and has this fair rental value. So can you double dip under Part D there? Can you get both parts? Can you get all that cash? Potentially?
Hmm. Okay, so let's but yeah, say he had an ALE claim going. So
Right.
I think in my hypothetical he went to stay with his mother.
Well,
Yes.
she ain't letting him live there for free.
Okay. So he needed a hotel, and then we hit these 2 weeks where he was going to rent it but didn't,
Right.
and then he needs a hotel after that,
Right.
and during that because his house
Right.
isn't prepared yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're happy to pay the ALE claim for the whole time.
Right.
Question is, in those 2 weeks, does he get the ALE and the fair rental value? Does he get both?
Exactly. Right. That's my question.
Uh,
He needs both.
there's nothing in the policy language. There's not a lot of case law on this, so we would just go back to principles of indemnity, being as fair as possible, trying to compensate the insured, but no windfalls, no
Right.
overcompensation. I would argue that double dipping doesn't seem appropriate here because the all of coverage D is to compensate you for being unable to use your house for whatever you're using it for. He was either going to live there or he was going to rent it out, but he was never going to do both at the same time. So I think he could pick, say, for those 2 weeks, do you want to switch over to fair rental value for those 2 weeks? Yeah, yeah. Or do you want to just keep taking ALE, which I'm sure would be less than the 3,000? So you're going to want the fair rental, I'm sure. But to get both would be to give him more than he otherwise would have had.
Well,
Okay,
listen,
here's
I would make the argument, or maybe it could, maybe you don't know the answer, Tim, and I'm putting you on the spot, and I apologize up front. But let's say while that person he was renting my whole home for $3,000 for 2 weeks, I was going to stay at a hotel during that time.
Anyway,
Right. So
I would be
now
much
maybe.
I would be more likely to let him, let's not say double dip, but like you said, in that situation, he was going to use it for both renting and living there.
Right.
Yes, I think that would be fair, but then I highly doubt the fair market value would have been $3,000 because no one's going to pay the full what they would have paid for the whole house when you stay there and you're in the guest bedroom and the guy's already in the house. Awkward. So
mm,
probably, these all of these ALE and FRV claims are so individualized and case by
Right.
case. It's just working with the insured, and that sounds about right to me.
That's the
do you think
proper.
the state matters, Tim? Like, does it differ per state, or is it pretty much uniform? Would you say, like, I mean, this is Kentucky, obviously, but
Yeah, and well, obviously state laws are different, but with the ALE and especially with the fair rental value, there's not that much case law. So, if you're in whatever state, the odds that there is not only a fair rental case, but a case that's on point with your facts is pretty rare. Obviously, something you want to check, but this more than other issues is something that tends to be more common among all the states.
Now that we've got all these apps, you got Airbnb, you got Verbo. I don't know if there's a horse derby equivalent. Um, does the outgrowth of these new ways to rent your home, does that affect this at all?
Yeah, we talked about this in the Airbnb episode way back. So you
Oh, one of my favorites, Tim.
probably don't remember, but the 2022 ISO homeowners made a huge change on all of they call it the home sharing services, which they define. And when you read it, it obviously means Airbnb and Verbo and whatever the other ones are. And they did add one sentence at the end of FRV. However, we do not cover any fair rental value arising out of or in connection with home sharing host activities.
Ooh.
So, yeah, under the 2022, that's totally different. Um, I guess we've recognized that the whole home sharing thing has become such an industry that it's more appropriately handled with a specific endorsement that you had. Maybe when you applied for insurance, you asked, do you ever use Airbnb or put this home up for rent? And then maybe there's an endorsement that goes along with that. Or maybe Airbnb somehow contributes. I don't, I have no
Yeah,
idea
maybe they have coverage. Yeah.
what they're offering. But yeah, the point is in that, like you said, Brian, in the 2022 edition, that's a major change.
Can I ask you a question, Tim?
Yep.
We know the 2011 policy is green. What color is the 2022? Do you have a printed version with a color yet?
It's white because
Oh,
I so far have not gotten around to finding colored paper. The original rationale for whoever printed out these colors did it in a long time ago, because the 2000 edition is blue and blue is new.
Oh,
And the 1991 edition was yellow or gold because gold is old.
All right.
And then once we got
Love
to
it.
2011, whoever did this just went green, and then now we got to find another color. So maybe I can get our office manager to buy me some purple paper.
You gotta do bluer for newer.
there you go.
Blue or newer,
Like that.
exactly. A light blue,
Very good.
a Tiffany blue.
If I could find something that rhymed with mauve, that would be awesome.
Ah,
But I can't think of anything.
Okay, well I can do one more twist before.
Ooh,
Ooh.
Yeah.
please. I
Be a
love
quick
twists.
Let's say miraculously they repaired the home before the Derby.
Oh,
Might have to
wow.
adjust the time scale on the original facts a little bit, but it was too late because the tenant had already canceled the contract. As soon as
Yeah.
he got wind of that fire, he said, "I'm out. I'm going to go rent somewhere else." So the insured now wants to collect the $3,000, even though it was livable. But he lost. He was livable during the Derby, but he lost his ability to rent it because of the fire.
Well, it was still being held for rental for the Derby. Just you haven't yet found a taker.
Yeah, I feel bad having you reason your way through this because there's another sentence in the policy
Oh.
that's going to.
Well, Tim, you're holding back on us.
Oh no, he's
I don't
using.
want
Is
you
he
to go
using
through
his
the whole
due
thing and then
diligence to get another tenant?
flip it on you. There's a specific exclusion in this in the homeowner,
Oh.
at least in the ISO forms. We do not cover loss or expense due to cancellation of a lease or agreement. So I
For
guess
whatever
the idea
reason?
is we really only want to cover times when it's actually uninhabitable. Once the period of restoration is over, that closes the window on your FRV claim.
Right.
Mm.
Makes sense.
Oh. In the meantime, Tim, what can we take away from this scenario?
To recap, the insured takes advantage of his proximity to Churchill Downs and rents his house out for the Kentucky Derby every May. He lost his home in a fire just before the Derby, so the rental contract for this year was canceled. Under a standard homeowners form, the insured most likely can make a claim for FRV coverage D since it was held for rental, and the claim would be for the fair market value of 2 weeks of rent during that special time of the season in this little neighborhood in Louisville. And Mike, if Juster would like to learn more, where can they go?
Well, they can go right to plrb.org. Check out the hub for property coverage research. Got a couple coverage questions out there that deal with fair rental value and ALE for travel costs to a rental property. And then we also have a policy annotation on fair rental value. So everything you could want to know about this exact scenario can be found at plrb.org. Would you be kind enough to post that information in our links to our show notes?
Yes, and there you'll
Yay.
also find a recap of the key points from this episode and
Mhm.
links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate
Right.
us. And
5
please
stars.
give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story.
Yay. Any phone calls yet, Brenda?
Not just yet. That's 630-509-8704.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies